Thanks for joining my channel today. So it's really been on my heart to talk about neighbors, community, what impact it's had on me, because neighbors have blessed my life so much. Not because I've always had great neighbors, because I've actually had really bad neighbors before. But pretty much everywhere I've lived, I've had neighbors be placed in my life, and they have dramatically changed situations in my life. They've dramatically blessed my life, changed my life, all of those things. And so I think it's really important for us to remember, wherever we live, like, you are placed where you live specifically for a purpose, because those people around you are there. Like, I just don't believe anything's by accident. Like, I believe those people are there for a reason. And what I love about neighbors is they're not necessarily the people that we would pick to be in our circle, right? We tend to pick people who are like us, who think like us, and we stay kind of in our bubble. But when you move into a neighborhood, you get all these people around you who are not like you. And I think that's great and wonderful, because God is saying, hey, you know what? You need this person in your life. It's not a person you're going to choose, but it's the one I think you need, and I'm going to choose them for you. And so I wanted to tell my birth story with my son, and how it was a neighbor who really helped me in a time of need. And her name is Gloria, and she is still like my family today. And she was just a neighbor, and she is just somebody who loves so much bigger and more genuine than probably anybody else I've ever met. And so she was really instrumental in just helping my family when we had moved here to Florida. We really didn't have strong connections. We were going to a church at the time, but we hadn't really made strong friendships yet. It was her. When we needed somebody, it was her who came over without question and just helped and blessed me. And so I think it's important for us to remember that, you know, we can be a blessing to the people placed around us. So yeah, I'm gonna get into my birth story that is so bananas. And I'm sorry, because my son is 8 years old now. This is his birth story. So some of my facts, or some of the things I remember, are a little bit fuzzy. So I'll try and keep it like as clear as I can remember. So while I was pregnant with him, I really felt like it was important for me to go to a birthing center. I wanted to have an all-natural pregnancy with him, which my husband was against from day one. And that is a big red flag to me. Like, looking back, I wish I would have not done it, and I don't even know why it was so important to me, because I did have an epidural with my daughter, and I had a fantastic, like, everything went so good. It was fantastic. So I don't know why, like, I was so stuck on this. My poor husband. But I was just like so for it. I felt like it was the right thing to do. Like, that was just what I had to do. Again, you guys, I do not feel that way still, so I'm sorry. Because of that, I didn't have like an OB. I was just going and seeing a midwife, and I had a doula, and that was like my care. And so when you go into places like this, at least here in Florida, I don't know if it's the same everywhere, but they're not allowed to do like your urine test to see your protein and things like that. You have to do it yourself, and then they give you a chart to kind of like grade where your urine is, like if it had too much protein, like if it's good or bad. And then they're supposed to check over it just to like look at what you wrote to know how well or not well you're doing. Well, mine was always kind of in this middle area of like, okay, bad. And so throughout the whole time I was going there, I always marked this. Now that I'm thinking about the story, I just want to pop in and say, you're going to be listening to this story and probably wanting to place blame on certain people as far as like what happened or how it could have been prevented. And I really think a lot of the blame lays on myself. I didn't eat as well as I should have, because I took for granted so much how well my first pregnancy went, that I was just kind of, my guard was much lower with my son. Like, it'll be fine. The first one was fine. I don't have to like worry as much. So I really wasn't like eating healthy. I was just eating whatever I wanted. Yeah, I wish I could do that over. Just wanted to put that in there, I really think that myself's to blame. You could even say the midwives were to blame a little bit, and then the rest of the story you'll see who else is to blame. So yes, I was always showing like kind of not great for my urine, and also my blood pressure was steadily getting worse and worse the further I went along in the pregnancy. And also I was so swollen, you guys. It was bananas. It was like my face was so swollen. I could not wear any of my rings. I wore my wedding ring on a necklace. My feet were so swollen. They were humongous, and my ankles were huge. And like if you press into my skin, it would just stay like that for a very long time. It would just stay indented. So I ended up, fast forward, I ended up going past my due date. I think I was like a week after my due date. And they had told me, the midwife had told me, because of where my blood pressure was and because of these other factors, she had told me to watch out for these certain signs, and if I had any of these signs, to call them right away and let them know, and that I needed to come in. And so one day I was out walking, and all of a sudden I started to have a lot of black spots in my vision. So that was one of the symptoms that she said to call right away if that happened. And so I called her. They had me come in. My mom and dad had already been, they live in Africa, but they had already been in Florida at this time because I was gonna have the baby soon, and they wanted to be here for the birth. And so they had already been here. None of us thought I would go over my due date, so they had been here waiting. It was actually almost time for them to go back at this time. So I go in and I see the midwife with my mom. My husband was at work, and when I got there, they took my blood pressure and it was high, more than normal. So they were concerned, and they told me I would have to deliver that day. So they told me that I couldn't even deliver there. I was gonna have to go to the hospital to deliver because my blood pressure was high. So at this time, I didn't think that this was like an emergency situation. I never got that feeling. My mom didn't get that feeling. We just thought this was like, hey, you're gonna have to go in, you're gonna have to get induced. That didn't scare me. I was induced with my daughter, and actually I was kind of glad just to not be pregnant anymore. Although this wasn't my birth plan, I was still okay going in and having a delivery. So I thought that was the plan. She had told me when I was on my way to the hospital to call and let them know that I was headed over there, but that she was already going to call them and let them know that they would be seeing me today. Okay, that's fine. It was early afternoon at this point, and I had still not eaten. Y'all, you know what I did already, probably. So when you're pregnant, you know that you're not allowed to eat. And I was thinking, I'm gonna be there for a long time. If I'm gonna get induced, it's gonna take forever until I have this baby. So I was really thinking I had to eat, or I should eat before I go in. So my mom and I went and we grabbed some food and ate. And after we ate, I called the hospital. You guys, when I called the hospital, that's when things like got real. They were so mad at me when I called them and let them know that I was eating and that I was not on my way. So I guess they had been like code red at the hospital waiting for me. Like this was an emergency, and they were expecting, they were like, why aren't you here? We've all been waiting for you. You're supposed to be on your way. And like they're prepping for me in the emergency room. I did not understand this. Like that was not ever in my thinking. So I call my husband, let him know. He heads over there. We all get there, and it was insane. Like we go in, and I just remember the nurse like physically yelling at me, telling me to calm down, and I just couldn't grasp like what was happening, because here I went from thinking I'd have a natural birth to, okay, I'm probably gonna have Pitocin and I'm just gonna get induced, to no, we need to rush you in and you need a C-section immediately. That whole situation was freaking me out. Plus, just because of my personality, like if you yell at me, that is gonna, like my rate's gonna go really fast and I'm just gonna be stressed out. So she was yelling at me, telling me to calm down, which was just like making the situation worse. Anyways, I guess my blood pressure, I don't remember what it was, you guys, but it was really crazy. And I guess they did some kind of like, I don't know what they did, but they did some kind of test on me, like they pressed on my feet or something, and I was showing a lot of signs that I was like about to start seizing, or I was kind of already, but I was about to really start having seizures. And so that's why they had to hurry up and get me in for a C-section. So it was probably like I got to the hospital like 3 minutes later, I was in the emergency room. It was really, really fast. So I guess what happened was at this point, I don't know if I was eclamptic at this point or severe pre-eclampsia. I never really had a doctor be clear to me as far as like what happened and what went on. So I was either severely pre-eclamptic or I was already at the stage of eclampsia. I'm not really sure, but it was very bad. And so I went in. My son had already started to detach from the placenta inside. That's something that can happen with pre-eclampsia, and he was already very far detached, and so it was a good thing that I had gone in that day, or we could have lost him. When he was born, he had medical issues that I'm not going to go into because that's for him to tell when he gets older if he wants it to be shared with the world or not. So I'm just going to respect his privacy on that, but he had problems. So he had to get rushed to All Children's Hospital, and I stayed where I was. My husband went with him. My parents were still in town for a little while, so my mom was there with me and my dad. Typically, when you have pre-eclampsia, the cure for it is to have your baby. Well, after I had my son, I was not feeling any better. In fact, I was feeling a lot worse. I could not sit up or open my eyes without being nauseous or throwing up. I just kept passing out and was just feeling really bad. And so they ended up giving me a blood transfusion, which helped a lot with that stuff. But my blood pressure never went back down after I had him. It stayed really, really high, and they weren't sure what was going on. So I had to stay in the hospital. My son, over at All Children's, they were getting him taken care of, and actually he got released before I did, and I think it was probably about a week that he was there. At this point, they had kept me in because of my blood pressure. And I remember one day when I was in there, I had a nurse come in to clean me because I was still in really bad shape, so they were cleaning me up. I just remember her pulling back my blanket and gasping. She was like, like fear in her face. And I don't know if you guys have ever been in this situation, but when you're in a hospital, number one, like I couldn't see anything down there. You still have, it's not like your tummy goes away all the way. So I still had a little bit of a tummy there from my son. And also the mirrors in the hospital room are like this big, like they're tiny little mirrors in the bathroom, and you can't see anything below your face. So she asked me, "Oh my dear, were you pushing for a really long time?" And you guys know I did not push at all. So I was just really taken back, like, no, I didn't push at all. And I told her, and she was like, "Oh, that's weird." But she never said anything to me, you guys. Like, this is concerning. Let's talk to your doctor about it. My doctor never said anything to me about it. I had no clue anything was wrong. Nobody told me anything was wrong. Nobody told me things don't look normal, things don't look right. I had no idea, and this was also my first C-section, so I had nothing to compare it to. I didn't know that what I was feeling wasn't normal. My doctor comes in, and my mom and dad were only going to be there, I think, for like another day, and so I had begged him to please release me so I could spend some time with my family. Everybody's back, and I just wanted to be home, not in the hospital, so we could all be together. And so I just begged them to please release me, and he said he would. He said he would release me, but that I had to promise to come in to their offices every single day, and that I also had to remain on bed rest while I was home. So I agreed, of course, and they let me go and released me, and I was able to spend some time with my family. I do remember that when I had to go into the doctor's, like, I would walk in and they would immediately bring me back to the room. I never had to sit and wait. I would show up, sign the paperwork, and then I would go right back into one of the waiting rooms in the back, and I would be seen by a doctor right away. Back up a little bit. This is important. I forgot to tell you guys. So when I was home, I saw myself for the first time in my big mirror. And I just want to put a warning. If you are somebody who has a sensitive stomach, or you don't like to hear about blood or gross things, then you're not going to want to listen to this story. And I just want to give you time to click off and just don't worry about it. I understand. I actually had told this story to a friend once, and she had to lay down. We were at the park with our kids, and she had to physically lay down on the ground because it just made her feel sick. So I don't want that to happen to you. So just go ahead and click off, and that's fine. I'm gonna continue now. So I go home and I look in the mirror, and let me show you guys. From about where my incision was to about here, my body was black. Like, not even blue and purple, it was black all over through that section. And certain things were very, very swollen, like very swollen, very wrongly swollen. And so again, this was my first C-section, so I just thought maybe this is something people had, this is something that happened to people. So I called my mom in. She's had 4 kids, just to show her and to be like, hey, is this normal? And she about almost passed out. She was like, oh my word, no, that's not cool, that's not right. And so since we knew I had to see my doctor every day anyway, we decided that I would go and ask my doctor. So she left the next day or that day, and then the next day I went in and see my doctor, and I asked him specifically about what I'm seeing and asked him if it was normal, if it was okay. And this is what he said to me: oh, we'll just keep an eye on it. Nothing else. Like, yeah, that's not normal. Nothing. It wasn't explained to me why it happened ever. I'm still, honestly, when I look back at the story, I'm so confused even now about what happened, why, and all that, because nobody ever gave me a clear answers about it. So, okay, we're just gonna keep an eye on it. I just figured that's what we would needed to do, and no big deal. He didn't make it sound like a big deal. He was really calm and chill about it, and so that's what we did. Now this is where my neighbor comes in, because I'm on bed rest. You know, now I have a newborn. My husband has to go back to work. I'm on bed rest. We don't have anybody else. My mother-in-law and my sister-in-law are there, but they didn't live like real close to us. And so though they were very helpful at times in the story, we really needed like daily care and just did not know what to do. And without me even asking my neighbor, without me even really having this strong relationship with her, she was just a person. And she came over every day and cooked me food. She came over every day and cleaned my apartment. You guys, I didn't even ask her to do this. And I can't even tell you how much that meant to me, and how much that influence has influenced me in just looking out for people and seeing like, what do they need? How can I be a blessing to them? And something I always strive to put out in these videos is how important community is, how important these people are who are next to us, and just to go out and be purposeful and saying, I am gonna love them, I'm gonna help them. Because without her in my life at that time, I do not know what we would have done. But that's the beautiful thing, right? God knew exactly who I needed, and he placed her right there because she is the person that I needed in my life so much. And so Gloria came in and rescued me. She was such a help, even in the days to come as things unraveled. I don't know how much time exactly went by, but I'm gonna say it was like a week, maybe 2. I was not getting any better. In fact, I was starting to feel worse and worse and sicker. My incision was getting really tight and swollen through there. It was just so uncomfortable. And I just remember how gross I felt. But when I went to my doctor's, because so much time had passed now, he told me to get up and try and do light walking here and there. So my husband and I, one day, we decided to go to the mall and we were just gonna walk around a little bit. So we were at the mall and I just rubbed my incision down there because it was really uncomfortable. And we hadn't been there for very long. We were just walking a little bit. This was near our apartment. And I looked up and I had a little bit of blood on my fingers. So I tell my husband, like, oh, this is weird. Look it. And so he says, okay, let's go home. Let's get our things and we're gonna go to the hospital and get you checked out. So we go home and I'm changing my son on his changing table, getting ready to go to the hospital. And warning, this is not for the weak stomach. While I'm changing my son, my whole incision opens from end to end and blood just spewed all over the place. My apartment legitimately looked like a crime scene had happened. It just went everywhere. My husband calls 911. The ambulance comes. I was sitting on a chair. We had a towel over my incision just to keep the blood in. And I did not feel like there was no pain when that happened. Like I did not even feel a thing. I was so numb down there and just so like swollen and sore. I don't know if that's why, but I just don't remember like not being in pain. They even asked me when they came. The ambulance came, like, are you in pain? I was like, no, I don't feel anything. Anyways, they came and my sweet mother-in-law is the one who cleaned that apartment, and I don't know what magic she did, but when I got back, it looked like it had never happened. And so God bless her. She is a beautiful, amazing woman, and she just worked some kind of magic over my apartment, and I'm so thankful for her. So we go back to the hospital. And by this time, they had checked me out inside. And after I had already lost like that blood, like I probably lost, oh gosh, I don't even know, like at least a basketball size amount of blood. Like it seems like, because it was just everywhere. By the time that they had looked at me, I still had a softball size amount of blood, a hematoma inside of my stomach. The reason that it had come out right there is because it had been building and building and building inside of me, and that was just the point where it could press against and come out. So it was a very dangerous situation, and I was in the hospital again for probably another week. Why did that happen? I don't know. I have no answers. If you're watching this hoping to get an understanding of what the heck happened, I don't have any for you, and I'm really sorry because like I said, I am still confused over the whole situation. I was in the hospital for probably another week, and in fact, I had a nurse come in my room once. She was super sweet. She prayed with me a lot, and we just talked, and she had told me that it was her last day because of what she saw happen with my situation. She had put in her notice, like she couldn't stay there anymore. I don't know exactly why or what that meant, but she just told me that she had quit. She told me that the doctors think they may have nicked something when they did my C-section, but again, I don't know. I never had a doctor come in and explain it to me, and you know, I really wish, looking back, I would have asked more questions in so many different points, like especially when I went in and specifically asked them when I saw the bruising that was so bad. I wish I would have pressed them more about, well, why is this happening? I really just trusted that it was normal, and that if it wasn't normal or that if it was serious, that they would have told me. And so that's what happened. I drained blood for a long time after that, Even after I was released from the hospital, I was still draining blood. I can't remember even how long it was, but it took a long time for it to all come out. And now my incision for my C-section is not a straight line because it opened up and then reclosed, so it's like wonky and dumb, stupid looking. But my son is healthy. All of his issues have been cleared up and taken care of with surgery and things like that. He's good. I'm good. Yeah, if you have any crazy birth stories like that, please let me know. If you maybe have some insight into what happened. I know that the eclampsia played a part in that for sure, and just in everything. Oh, and my blood pressure and everything after I lost all the blood, that's when everything went back to normal. I've never heard of that happening to anybody else, but if it's happened to you, let me know. I'd love to know I'm not alone in that happening. And that is my birth story with my son, Levi. Anyways, maybe I'll add some pictures of my sweet Gloria. She even lived with my family for a time. Like I said, she is like family now. And I don't know how we would have got through those times of me being on bed rest. She was just a pivotal part in our life. I hope this video inspires you. Let me know, what are some ways that you show your neighbors or just people in your life how you love them? What are some ways that you do that? Let me know in the comments below. If there's a certain video you'd like to see me talk on or something you'd like me to go see to bless the community, please let me know, and I would love to do that and to show you how it can be done. All right, bye you guys.